I took office, and to thank Reverend Fayose for reminding me that I promised that my doors were open, and I wish to assure you that they are still open. I believe that good leadership is born out of consultation, feedback, criticism, all help to forge good leadership. And so the administration that I lead has absolutely no issues with getting feedback from the population or being criticized by the population or entering into dialogue with any segment of the population, especially for a key institution like the Christian Council. So I want to thank you for the 6 issues raised, because I know they've been well thought through. And it is only by interaction with us that we will all be on the same wavelength and understand, the challenges that government faces. And so I'll just take the 6 issues raised and I'll bring you up to speed from our perspective what the issues are. The lack of opportunity and livelihood for our young people, and especially our rural folk, has eaten deep into the social fabric. And so agriculture no longer pays off like the way it used to do. Aside from that, young people, because of the Millennium Development Goals, we have 99% enrollment and gender parity in enrollment between male and female. And so majority of our children are going to school. They're finishing basic school. And now, because of free SHS, majority of them are continuing on to secondary school. Now we've been trained that if you finish secondary school, you're entitled to a blue-collar job or a white-collar job. And so most of those who finish are coming out and looking for military, police, immigration, customs, civil service, some job that ensures a monthly salary. And so with the numbers and the lack of opportunity and the frustration that has built up into the system, the easy opportunity with illegal mining, especially with the current price of gold on the international market at about $4,000 per ounce, has made it very attractive for people to go into it. There are only 5 regions in this country that don't have gold as a resource. And those regions, if you go, you can tell that they are not affected by the menace of mining. Volta region is called oxygen because the oxygen is so fresh when you go to Volta region. And the forests are there, very beautiful landscape, because there's no illegal mining taking place there. Unfortunately, for 11 of our regions, there are patches of gold in different parts of the region. And whole communities have become involved. And so it's a very complex and challenging fight. And my government's position is a commitment to the fight against it. But I just want you to understand the difficulty that is, involved in this fight. You saw recently some members of the Anti-Illegal Mining Task Force went to communities to do their jobs, and they were brutally attacked by the whole community. The one that happened in Ahafo. But for good luck and, the intervention of God, those 9 months task force would have been killed, because there were almost 700 people armed with sticks and stones. Remember what happened to Major Mahama? It was almost a similar incident. And that's not the only place. There have been several places. I'm just trying to explain to you how it has eaten into the fabric of our society. And so I said, no, we cannot have this impunity. And so after they retreated, another group of journalists were going to another community. The community attacked them, and so they had to retreat. In retreating, they had an accident. And so I told the security services, I said, you cannot allow communities to act with impunity. And so you go back there and arrest all those who were involved in those attacks so that we put back the authority of the state in those areas. And that's why they went back and made those arrests. We're still processing them and taking out those who were involved in the attacks. And we're going to let them face the full rigors of the law, because we need to stamp the authority of the state on issues of security and crime. And so that's taking it apart. But one of the most important things is coordination. When we started the fight, the police were running their own task force. The military were running their own task force. Different groups, district chief executives were running their own task forces. You know, ministers will gather people and go and say, we're doing anti-Galamsey task force. And there was a lot of extortion from people. They go and say, we're part of the anti-Galamsey task force. And then it's all just to extort money from them. So we said, no, we have to do a proper coordination. And that's how come NIMOS was created. And so now you have to take the mandate from NIMOS before you go on an operation. And you let NIMOS know what operation you're doing, which illegal, you do a reconnaissance, let's know which illegal miners you have identified, and then you go in there. And when you go in there, you go accompanied by the necessary security in order that you can achieve your purposes. And so I get the reports every day. Every day you find anti-Galamsey, you find Galamsey pits, people being arrested and all that. Another problem we have is, so far, we've arrested more than 1,700 people. The courts to even process these people is a problem. So many of them, we've been forced to grant them bail. And in some cases, when you go back to look for them, they've left the area. And so one of the things Cabinet did the last time was to pass the Public Tribunals Bill, so that we'll push issues to do with illegal mining to the public tribunals, because they would adjudicate faster and let justice be seen to be done. And as the tribunals have it, they have a judge, and then they have 4 other members who either have a legal background or are of a certain level of understanding of the law. And so if that comes, we would be able to process, you know, these cases against illegal mining even quicker. There's another aspect to it. One of the main focuses has been to push the illegal miners out of the forest reserves. And so part of the focus has been the forest reserves, and then also mining on the water bodies. And so they are on the water bodies, they are seizing Shamfam machines, they are destroying them. We've said that any Shamfam machine they seize, they should destroy it so that it can be used again. And so that's another aspect of it. Then the next aspect, which the EPA just started, was to go to those who are providing the spare parts and the equipment to the illegal miners. Because if you're able to take a hold of that place, then they won't get the tools they need to go and do the illegal mining. We've always had mining in this country since our ancestors, but that was called artisanal mining. They went with a pickaxe and a shovel and a hoe and a pan and some water, and then they dug the gold and put it in the pan, and then they wash it, and then they pick the specks of gold. Illegal mining became a problem when excavators were introduced and the famous Shamfam machine was introduced, because the excavator can destroy a huge place in a few days. And apart from that, when it digs up the ore, the Shamfam machine washes it efficiently and extracts the gold quickly, so they can do it on a bigger scale. So the Shamfam machines have become one of the targets, and that's why we've gone and seized Shamfam machines. We made it illegal to sell them, and so we've seized them, and I'm sure that you'd have seen it in the news a few days ago. And so the fight is on strongly. If we want to put the security services in the gold mining areas, then we'll have to take the whole of the Ghana Police Service, the whole of the Ghana Army, and send them on the anti-Galamsey fight. But that means that you won't have police guarding your houses and your banks and other things. And so while it is useful to send the security out, we must look at the areas that will affect the access to spare parts and machines and others. And that's why all the excavators that came to the port, we have taken them and sent them to the Shire Hills. Some are legitimate excavators imported by contractors to do road construction. If you are able to prove to us that it is for road construction, it is released. But all others have been confiscated and kept so that they don't end up on the mining sites. And so I think it's not an easy fight, but we're not going to give up. We're going to continue fighting. And aside from that, we've started, there are two more things that we have to do. One is alternative livelihoods. And so we've started a project to reclaim the mined out lands. We're doing a PPP with a private organization. And so far they've taken 1,000 hectares of land. And the video is there. They've started filling the holes. They are decontaminating the water. And once they have done that, they're going to plant fast-growing trees on the land. If the pilot is successful, which is 1,000 hectares, then we're going to expand it. We believe that about 30,000 hectares of land needs to be reclaimed. And so we're going to employ these same boys who are used in the Galamsey to be the ones to plant the trees. And they will get a stipend every month for planting the trees, because unless you give them an alternative, they would end up in the Galamsey sites again. And so that is something that we're working on. With regards to the Family Values Bill, you are all aware what happened the last time during the past administration. There was a legal tussle, and somebody filed an injunction against Parliament to injunct the Speaker from forwarding the bill to the President for assent. And so the situation is that the bill was never submitted to the President for assent. So it was not submitted, and the President did not assent. And by the Constitution, any bill that is not assented to by the President before the expiration of the life of Parliament expires. And so it means that the bill has to be relayed in the House. The Speaker has given notice that he will allow it to be relayed. But if you want the position of my government, marriage is between man and woman. A person's gender is determined at birth. And then also that the family is the foundation of our nation. That is our position. And so there are no questions or equivocations about what we believe. I believe that we are completely aligned with the Christian Council in terms of your belief. And so we agree with the Speaker to relay the bill and let Parliament, debate it. And if there are any amendments or whatever that have to be done. If the Parliament of the people of Ghana endorse the bill and vote on it and pass it, and it comes to me as President, I will sign it. Now, the issue on the National Cathedral. The National Cathedral Board of Trustees ordered an audit into the accounts of the National Cathedral. The audit was published, and there were some issues that bubbled out of the audit. But there are two kinds of audit. There's a normal audit that you yourself choose your auditor and ask him to come and audit you. And then he audits and presents the report to you. There's that kind of auditor. Then there's the auditor who is asked to come and do a forensic audit. And so we got a copy of the audit that had been commissioned by the Board of Trustees. And as president, I directed that a forensic audit be conducted. We want to know what happened. Before we go forward, we must know what happened. And so we're waiting for the report of the forensic audit. Once that forensic audit has been done, then we can decide what the way forward is. I am a Christian, and I believe that building a house where we can worship God is a good thing. I contributed as one of the chief fundraisers for my own Assemblies of God church building where I worship at Ringway Gospel Center. And I built 10 rural, we call them temples, in 10 villages for the Assemblies of God church. Of course, I solicited support from different people. And we built them. They have quarters for the pastor. He's got his bedroom, he's got his kitchen, he's got his living room. And then we have the church hall that can seat up to about 150 people. And so I do believe in building, an interdenominational place where we can worship. But it must be done in consultation with all of us. All of us must decide, how we want to do it, what the scope is, and how much it should cost. I believe that at this time and age, with all the problems we have, $400 million to build a cathedral is excessive. I know Nigeria have built an ecumenical center, and I've been there. It's a decent, beautiful place. And they built it for $40 million. And so maybe some of the things are excessive, Let's find somewhere, all of us, on National Day of Thanksgiving and Worship, we can all go there and worship God and thank Him for what He has done for us. And so when that forensic audit is over, our intention is to have a broad-based consultation with the Christian community to see how we can build a place that is decent for us to worship. But apart from that, make it a center where people can come and, look at its architecture and all that, and find that Christ, has a place in our hearts, in our nation. And so when the time comes, we'll do that consultation, and we'll decide together how we want to go forward. Before I became president, had indicated that we're going to take the fight against corruption to a whole new level. And it's not anything personal against anybody. I have said several times that our problem in the fight against corruption is that it is always post-regime corruption that we fight. And so when a government is in office, when scandals are taking place, they don't deal with them. And so they leave it until a new government comes. And when that government comes and starts investigating the cases of corruption, then the previous government says, oh, you are witch hunting us. This is political persecution. But I've said notice to my ministers, ask them every day in cabinet, I remind them. I say the prosecutions that we're taking against the current government woe betides the first person who brings a scandal to this government. We shall hang them on a cross. And you follow our Lord Jesus Christ, that you cannot resurrect again. And so I keep warning them that Aba Yedibo Techi and One Yedibo Boba. But we must deal with the corruption that has taken place. And my belief is that if we want our people to continue to have faith in our democracy, then we must show that the political elite is capable of governing accountably. Because by the time we went to the 2024 elections, most of our young people and our people were like, oh, even elections, it's a waste of time. You go and vote and people will just come and misuse our money. If we don't let our people believe that we can govern this country and govern it accountably and hold people to ransom who have misused government resources, then we can go the way other countries have gone. And that's why I said before the election, and I was misinterpreted, I said Ghana is not immune from coup d'etats. If the political class does not get its act together, it is possible that there could be a military coup or a civilian uprising. And civilian uprisings are worse than military coups because they end up in chaos and anarchy. If you look at what happened in Sri Lanka or somewhere, when the people had had enough, they overran the government, the prime minister ran away. They entered the prime minister's house, they were swimming in his swimming pool and opened his fridge and were drinking his drinks and eating his food. That is worse than a coup d'etat. And so for me, I said that my mission is to use the mandate Ghanaians have given me to move Ghana to a level where anybody who comes after cannot reverse the gains that we have done. And then people come to me and say, oh, but oral is too slow, the investigations and prosecutions are too slow and all that. But the point is, we have a constitution. We are not in the military and revolutionary days. A person, even whatever they say the person has done, the person must have his day in court. And a judge must look at the evidence and decide whether he's guilty or not guilty. Society can condemn the person as guilty, but when you present the facts in court, the judge might have a different opinion. And so, even though, I'm sure most Ghanaians would want us to have one big courts, this thing, put them in, and then in 1 week we dispatch your case and then straight to Nsawam and just keep dispatching them. We have a constitution, and we must follow the process. And you don't just get up and take the person to court because you believe he's committed a crime. You must gather the evidence. Because however guilty you think a person is, if you don't gather the evidence and you just rush a case to court, the judge will throw it out. And so they say all this oral thing and this, that. The investigative organizations are working as and when they have sufficient evidence, then they take the case to court. And so we're not going to rush those cases if we don't have evidence because the public is baying for blood. We're going to go through, gather the evidence, prepare the dockets properly, so that when we take these people to court, we're sure of what it is we've accused them of. And so the fight against corruption, we're committed to it. We'll be impartial and fair, and we're working to strengthen the institutions and make sure that we give them the logistics that they deserve. Many of them have asked for more trained investigators and to train some more of their investigators in evidence gathering and docket building and all that. And so we're taking cognition of that, and we would assist them in that regard. With regards to the mission schools, the Catholic Secretariat was here, they raised the same issue, and so it's something that we have referred to the Minister of Education. He actually sat in the meeting with the Catholic Secretariat, and if I'd known it would be one of the issues you raised, I'd have made him come here so that he'll give us an update on what has happened since then. We know that an MOU was signed at a certain time, so we've asked him to bring the MOU, update it, and bring an information paper to Cabinet to apprise Cabinet of what progress was made with regards to giving bigger control back to the missions in respect of their schools. So once he does that, Cabinet will look at it and take a decision. I'm sure there'll be more consultation between yourselves and the Ministry of Education so that when you come up with a consensus that we all can stand behind, then we will move forward. I think it's in the right direction because if you look at secular control of schools, in many cases you have a breakdown of discipline. In many cases, morality is not as enforced as it should. I mean, you have a situation where a student takes a gun and takes it to school and fires it and blinds one of his colleagues. I mean, very outrageous things, happen. And so I believe that, yes, like you said, the kind of cooperation we have when it comes to the healthcare sector is something that we can have in the education sector. And by the way, we have not taken a decision yet, but it's going to come to Cabinet. We've asked the Ministry of Education to do an assessment of all the outstanding Agenda 111 hospitals. I think AESL is doing that work. And so when they bring the report, there are some that are near completion that government will just go ahead and complete. And there are others too that are at various stages. You know, the foundation has been finished, some are at lintel, different segments. And I was saying that because of the cooperation we enjoy with the faith-based organizations that run hospitals, if there are some of these hospitals in areas where you find that it is useful for you to expand your health outreach, you might agree to take one of the hospitals and complete it and add it to the hospitals that you manage. And so at the right time, we will come with all the information on the hospitals and where they are located. And then once you've gone through, you can look at where your congregations are and where you think that if you take the hospital, it will enhance the medical outreaches that you're doing. The last one is a tragedy, and it was avoidable. It just shouldn't have happened. The lack of opportunity has made recruitment into the security services a life and death issue for many young people. And so for many years, many young people have been wanting to go into the security services. But at a certain point in time, the recruitment was not transparent. You hear the portal is open, then nobody hears anything. Before you hear, people are in camp training. People have been selected and in camp training. And so we, during the campaign, said that we're going to make the recruitment more open and transparent, and that we're going to do the recruitment region in all the regions simultaneously. So we would announce a date. When you go on the portal, it will tell you whether you are qualified, because there are certain basic qualifications. And so if you go on the portal, it will give you a serial number and tell you you are qualified. And so we said when the time comes, we will show them where to come so that we do the recruitment. And so in all the other regions, I think things went fairly well. The two regions where we had problems were in Ashanti and Greater Accra. Most people haven't heard, but in Ashanti, one female was also trampled upon, and she remains in critical critical but stable condition. But Accra was where the major problem was. I mean, you have a stadium like Elwak. Elwak has only 2 entrances, and it was obvious by morning that, I mean, the venue was inadequate to take the numbers. And so what I think should have been done was to suspend the exercise for that day and then go on the drawing board again and see what to do, which is what they've done now. Now there are 5 different centers, and people are being called in batches when the resumption takes place later this week. And so the numbers are more manageable. But somebody should have foreseen that this would happen. Unfortunately, we lost 6 of our young people, all female, because the way the pressure came, you know, the female body is not as robust as the male. So most of those, even most of those who were injured were female. When I went to the ICU, most of those I saw there were female. But unfortunately, we lost 6 of them. Yeah, several of them, about 6 of them, are still in critical condition. We continue to pray that they make a full recovery. But I think that there must be lessons learned from this. The military has taken the decision to institute a board of inquiry, which is ongoing now. But in the meantime, those in charge of personnel management have been relieved of their positions, and new appointments have been made to personnel management. And so we pray for the souls of the young people who were lost. I sent the Deputy Minister and a contingent to visit all the families of those who lost their lives. And I also gave a directive that if they have a sibling or a relative from the family who is qualified medically and physically to join the security services, we should give them that opportunity so that the ambition that their sibling had or their relative had in joining the force will not be lost to the family. And I think that they've received that, quite well. So those are the issues that you have raised. I want to thank you for raising them. And like I said, our doors are always open. And I'm sure that this interactive session we've had will give you an understanding of the perspectives from which we also are operating. So thank you very much, and God richly bless you.